Good morning, happy Saturday. If you're wondering why I'm up before dawn, even on a Saturday, it's because I went to bed last night at about 4 in the afternoon. So my body was finally done with me at about 5 this morning. It said, get up, walk the puppies. So here we are. Now, you may wonder what I'm going to talk about this morning, and so do I. I think what I'm going to talk about is homelessness. I know Eric is a big advocate of homelessness, for the homeless, I should say, not advocate of homelessness. I don't think he wants people to be homeless, but I saw in my suggested feed that he's very upset that the police were taking the blankets away from the homeless before snow. And it's pretty sad. But there's some caveats. There's some things that make me think. Things that make me go, San Francisco doesn't have snow. But San Francisco does have a pretty sizable homeless population. A lot of people like to go to San Francisco to be homeless because it is a very charitable city. So charitable, in fact, that it spends about $40,000 a year per homeless person. $40,000 per year per homeless person to maintain them in their homeless state. That's services for medical, the needle exchanges, the porta potties, all sorts of wonderful services, outreach programs, all sorts of wonderful things to help the homeless. And what is it? What has that gotten for San Francisco? They lose out on a lot of events. Because any events that are going to be held in San Francisco are going to be surrounded by feces and homeless people, drugs, crime. It hasn't gotten them anything. Currently, San Francisco is looking at adding a new tax onto big businesses who, for some reason, are still in San Francisco. They're going to tax them, I think it's $270-ish an employee or something like that. And they're going to use that money to, again, home the homeless and feed the hungry and all that other fun stuff. I think the main difference that I have with Eric is that he thinks that the homeless people are the best at determining what their needs are and how their needs are best met. And I personally disagree. You have to either have some serious dependency issues like drug or alcohol dependency or mental issues, or you have to make some pretty terrible life choices to end up homeless. It's not a state that one would stay in for long, especially considering the services that are available to get you out of homelessness. In fact, Eric is not homeless anymore. It can be done if you have a modicum of intelligence and perhaps you aren't addicted to drugs or alcohol and you have a willingness to work. You can get out of homelessness. It has been done since time immemorial. The first group of people, actual humans, to walk the earth, whenever that was, they didn't come into being with homes. Homes were made. So we can definitely, as humans, get out of homelessness, barring exigent circumstances, barring, like I said, mental health disorders, or drug or alcohol dependency. And then there are just some people who just are incapable of making good decisions. That's the way the intelligence quotient works. There are some people who aren't technically retarded, but they're just not bright enough to get by in society. They're not smart enough to hold jobs, etc. I have, as a manager and supervisor in various fields, I've attempted to hire some of these people. Good kids, the willingness to work, and just not smart enough. You give them a relatively simple task and they'll botch it. And it's not because they're bad people. It's because they just don't have the intellectual fortitude to get it done. So I'm not trying to denigrate them, but I'm saying that they shouldn't be allowed to make their own decisions. If you hit that state where you are homeless, you don't get to make your own decisions anymore. If you want things, you need to allow people who are sober, who are sane, who are competent, to allow you to make those decisions, to better spend the limited resources that we as a society have allocated. Now, I strongly advocate for, I can't say strongly advocate for, but because I don't actually do anything about it, but I have mentioned several times that I still firmly believe that we do a great disservice to ourselves and the those with mental disorders who live among us by not giving them access to proper mental health care. Huge disservice. And I think it's a blot on our society. I think it's to our shame. So instead of spending money the way the homeless people would want, I would want to see money spent on drug and alcohol rehabilitation and psychiatric services, inpatient, outpatient, combinations thereof. And then finally, skills training to teach those who are just out because they don't have a lot of intellectual prowess. Give them some basic skills in something that they can make money at and get them going, get them off on the right foot. Because I personally don't think that high school is for everybody. There are those who are. I'm a book learner guy, You put a book in front of me, I'll read it, I'll understand it. One of my best friends for a long time, I don't know if he was dyslexic or whatever, I didn't get into it. He was kind of ashamed of it, but he couldn't understand written words. I mean, he could read, but he couldn't understand it. So he'd have to read a sentence, think about it. Read a sentence, think about it. But the guy was amazing with anything mechanical. Take it apart, put it back together. So what I'm saying is, I'm not trying to be a dick. I'm not trying to say, these stupid people don't have any skills. I'm just trying to say that, we need to maybe find what these underperformers are good at and, try to give them skills in that. And so hopefully they could find employment for themselves. Wean them off. I don't think that the homeless should be allowed to their own devices, though. I've been through San Francisco, I've been through Oakland, I've been through Portland, I've driven quickly past Seattle, but all these big cities that tend to be very empathetic towards the homeless, who spend a lot of money on the homeless, who are very lenient on the homeless, end up with a huge homelessness problem. They end up with crime. They end up with filth. Homeless people, You know, they're dragging around carts full of their worldly possessions, and their worldly possessions are essentially garbage, and they leave trails of it behind them. And again, I'm not trying to be an ass, but there is a strong correlation. Homelessness brings filth. It brings disease. It brings drug and alcohol abuse. And as a society, we need to treat those things. It is our problem as a society. And so I think it is best left to the cities first to determine, then the states, and I certainly don't want the federal government involved in it. Except insofar as I know there's a habit of some states to give their homeless who need mental health treatment. I know there are states who give those people bus tickets, and they pin a note to them to tell them to call 911, and they throw them on a bus to another state to make it that other state's problem. And that's terrible on so many levels. Even my dog agreed that's terrible. So I think that's the main point of disagreement I have with Eric. And that's as far as the homelessness is concerned and the way to treat it. I don't have an issue with, especially if they're giving out shoes. I don't know if you remember, but the issue with barefoot people on shoes, and his dog died, or his dog got lost. That's what it was. His dog got lost, and that was a really sad story. And he walked the soles off his shoes, looking for his dog. And I understand that, and that's terrible and great. And go get shoes. There are places that will give you shoes. You know, I am not a rich man. I mean, despite all the comments you may have seen about my expensive car and my fine living arrangements. I don't know if we've figured out exactly where I lived yet. I think that's still up in the air. In my first year law associate income. But even I will buy, if someone needs shoes, I'll buy him shoes. I won't give him money, but I'll buy him shoes. And I think there are places in, what is that, Denver area or Colorado Springs? I think it's Denver that he's in-ish. Or Boulder. Anyway, whatever big city that he's in, I'm sure that they have access to shoes. They have programs that are, and he said it himself, you know, when you're on the street, you have different priorities. You think differently. You're in a strange survival mode. He's got a stick. And that's precisely the thinking that I don't want to control what's going on, how resources are allocated, what is or isn't acceptable. I mean, he might think it's no big deal to take a shit behind a dumpster, but that's how diseases are spread. There is a reason why, there's many reasons, but there are reasons. One of the big reasons why we don't have the same kind of outbreaks that they did in the past is we have sewers. We have sanitation. You're not walking through other people's piss and shit. I think it's a huge deal. And just because there's no outbreak right now doesn't mean there won't be an outbreak in the future. So, and you know, there are also those among us with weakened immune systems who may not wish to be exposed to all the various gut flora of a homeless person through the feces. So I hope I don't come across as an ass. I'm just thinking I fundamentally disagree with Eric on the topic of who should be allowed to make decisions for the homeless. And we need to have laws, and we need to enforce those laws, because it's those laws that have gotten rid of things like spitting on the sidewalk. Everybody think that's a ridiculous rule, right? Typhoid was spread through spit. People would spit all the time. They'd spit on the sidewalk, and that would increase people's exposure. I think it was typhoid. There are various diseases that are transmitted via saliva, and all the spitting on the sidewalk spread them. And that's why there's no spitting on sidewalks. That's why spitting isn't, well, it's one of the many reasons. I guess it's a disgusting habit too. But that's why it's not allowed. And as a special bonus feature, all you anti-vaxxers are retarded. The reason why we don't have a lot of the diseases in the world today is because people have had vaccinations. There is no study that shows any detrimental effects of vaccinations. No repeatable study. And the whole point behind vaccinations is you immunize the herd. If you allow people to not be vaccinated, then the various diseases are going to continue. What is it? There's some disease that's making a comeback. What is it? Polio or something like that? I mean, people are being stupid. People need to stop being stupid. This is why we need government, is because there's way too many stupid people like James Freeman. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.